going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Form, bringing you guys another rendition of my Phantom Knight Horus adventure deck. So I've been playtesting Phantom Knight Horus now for since release, pretty much. I was able to get all the cards same week of release, and I might say the deck has been absolutely phenomenal. I think this build is actually probably the best build that I feel is the most consistent, has the most utility, as well as gives you the best options for being able to play into a board, as well as being able to establish a board. It's really great. Honestly, again, I've had no issues. I've actually been playing the deck and I have not dropped a single match playing this current list. I did play actually in a 3v3 case tournament. Unfortunately, we only got 6th place out of 21 teams. We went 3-1-1. I actually did not drop a single match. I actually only lost one game, and that was in time. And it actually ended up being a draw. It wasn't even a full loss. I actually got a draw, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, that was the only game that I had actually dropped. I only went into time 2 times. One time I went into time against Purely. I took game 1. Game 2 was quite a grind. Unfortunately, I don't know what all the Purely cards do, so I was doing my best to kind of maneuver, but I ended up winning in time. And then the other game that I ended up actually drawing was against Rescue Ace. I won game 1. And game 2, same thing. I played into their board. And I mean, the deck just plays into everything. You're able to pretty much out-resource your opponent. The only problem is outside of Bardiche, it's really hard to keep an established board because a lot of your cards do have very heavy on the control aspect. A lot of them do trade 1-for-1. So sometimes you can, ideally set up what you can in terms of interactions outside of your general end board. And then you're trying your best to kind of just manipulate your opponent's resources, turn after turn. I mean, the deck just lasts forever, especially if you have access to King Sarcophagus and your opponent's never able to out it. Your bodies just keep coming back. So yeah, it's definitely a deck that plays very well into other decks. But as I said, with this current list, I have actually not dropped a single match. I even played at locals today, able to go undefeated. I played against Runic Sprite, Vanquished Soul, Unchained, and Rescue Ace. And again, it's just a very strong deck. I definitely think this build is very, very good. I'll go over some cards, intricate situations that I think these cards work very well for. And my reasoning for playing certain cards, not a single hand trap in the list. Only hand trap that I have is actually in the sideboard, which is Droll, which even then, I mean, it's been performing okay against certain matchups. It's a very strong card and it does blow out a lot of decks, but the decks that I do want to be able to interact with in the way that I want to, Droll just kind of slows them down and then the rest of my deck finishes it out. But yeah, I definitely think this deck is super solid. I really wish I was going to Richmond to play, but unfortunately I'm not able to go because I really wanted to showcase this deck. I mean, this formula is absolutely great. I want you guys to definitely try it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, definitely give it a try. I'll let you know what cards you're able to kind of tinker with that I think are flex spots, but otherwise I think this list is absolutely perfect. 40 card main deck, very consistent. I very rarely draw bad hands, and even then your bad hands are facilitated by being able to just see other cards that allow you to basically kind of just net value, like King Sarcophagus. If you see a card you don't need to see in your opening, King Sarcophagus pretty much dumps it away, and then you're able to find utility out of the card later on, and I'll explain that in this deck profile. So yeah, and then I'll try to, as well as, depending on the length of the deck profile, we'll go ahead and throw in a combo video as well to kind of showcase to you guys what I'm doing. But yeah, the end boards are absolutely nuts depending on the hands, but let's go ahead and get into it. All right, as per usual of all of my deck profiles, we'll go ahead and start off with, on this formula, the Phantom Knight card. So very, very different list. I definitely want you to know it's very different than what we're accustomed to, but it's been working very, very well. We've got 2 Torn Scale, 3 Cloak, 3 Boots, 1 Gloves, 2 Fog Blade, and 1 Wing. So we did cut down on the traps. We did get rid of the trap monster, the Shade Burgadine. We're not playing Stained Greaves, and we dropped Torn down to 2. So pretty much the idea or concept behind this is that we want to be able to have as many cards as possible for being able to dump with King Sarcophagus as well as Mseti. It is very taxing for you to be able to set up those cards, but because Cloak and Boots are able to pretty much recycle themselves to hand by adding you another card, you're pretty much able to get everything that you need. So ideally, I mean, opening up these 2 allows you to go into Cherubini, and then they replace themselves with 2 additional cards to hand that allow you to dump for King Sarcophagus. And Mseti is the dark monster that we're pretty much using to climb from Cherubini into Bardiche. So you don't even need to basically recycle a level 3. And at that point, Torn Scale pretty much comes out, dumps a trap, and then you're able to pretty much make your Break Sword into IP or Evil Swarm Nightmare. So again, this ratio has actually been very, very good. There was only one single time where I actually opened up triple cloak, but I had droplet and king sarcophagus, so I still ended up winning the game. But yeah, I mean this ratio has been great. I do not miss Stain Greaves. I do not miss the Trap Monster. They're not that great to open, unfortunately, and it's not that great to try to extend with, because sometimes you do put traps in the grave. Sometimes you are forced to have to dump a Fog Blade or a Wings in order for you to start playing, whether it comes to Adventure or the Horus line. So yeah, we definitely want to make sure that you're being very smart about your resources. But I do believe that this ratio is great. I mean, again, I've had no issues with it. I'm able to see my 2 level 3s like I need to, and I think that's the most important thing, because we aren't playing any other level 3 extenders outside of our Phantom Knight engine and Adventure engine. And I know a lot of people focus primarily on the 3-axis style of how we play the deck, but that's not the way that you're playing this. You're pretty much playing this with the regard of basically coming to Bardiche, whether it be through Cherubini or whether it be through just Dark Charmer, IP with a Dark Monster. And it's very easy to do. Sometimes you can even do it with just 3 Darks, with Vampire Dragon, Mseti, and any other Dark on the board, and go straight into Bardiche. So, I mean, that's the idea. And our end board is just really, really good. We have great amount of resources. So yeah, this ratio I think is absolutely fine for the Phantom Knights. Then we'll do the Adventure. We've got 3 Water Enchantress, 1 Griffin, 2 Right, 1 Faithful Adventure, and 1 Draco bag. So we did cut 1 Right because we were seeing too many of the Right and Water Enchantress. It's really good actually to see Water Enchantress with Right, because of the fact that you're able to just pretty much summon this as a body, of course, a level 3, and then you're able to search Right and pitch it off of King Sarcophagus. So I think that's actually very important as well. You're using this utility in the same regard as you're using the Phantom Knights. Whatever extra cards you do have or don't need, you're pretty much dumping them to have access to be able to facilitate sending Horus names off of King Sarcophagus. And I don't miss the Illegal Knight. I think Illegal Knight is great, but unfortunately, with him being a fiend, as well as him being a name that's required for you to see your adventure line, it's not very optimal. I would much rather see Griffin in my opening with Right, because then I can just search a level 3. You're not really going to search Illegal Knight in most situations, because you want to have access to a level 3 for Break Sword and Cherubini and stuff. So yeah, I think this line is absolutely fine for adventure. Then we've got our 3 Mseti, 1 Blessing, 1 Guidance, and 3 Sarcophagus. We're only playing the 3 names. We don't need 4. 3 is perfectly fine, because again, these 2 are making you your vampire, zombie vampire, and then you're using Mseti to basically come back and be able to use to go from Cherubini into Bardiche, or if you need to use 2 names to go into Dark Charmer, this is your Dark for Cherubini as well. But yeah, this is absolutely perfect. And these cards, again, like these cards are custom cards, 100%. Like the text on these cards are absolutely insane. Your opponent lets you resolve any of the abilities on these cards, you pretty much win. Even this, like being able to just clear your opponent's board without even going to your extra deck is actually pretty insane. Just because of the fact that you're just pretty much inherently summoning these guys and then just going to battle and swinging. You're clearing the entire board. It's very hard to not clear a board with these cards. But they're insane, and they're absolutely great in this deck. They allow you to board break, set up a board, as well as be able to give you the advantage and resources you need to play the game. Foolish and Rhoda, these are our only utility spells that we're playing. I've got Call By in the sideboard because I don't feel like it's that great going blind into a first or second, not knowing whether you're going first or second. So I think Foolish and Rhoda are just clean. I mean, obviously they both facilitate every single engine in the deck. Rhoda just works for the Phantom Knights. Then we'll get into our going first or going second cards. Again, I tinkered a lot with these cards, and I really do think these are the best options the deck has, and they have been great. None of these cards have underperformed in the slightest. So we've got our 3 Kashtira Fenrir. Fenrir is here obviously to be able to break a board, build a board, as well as give us the additional card that we need to send off a King Sarcophagus. This card is very much valued in this deck. I mean, again, it's Fenrir, so being able to put it on your board to start, getting the free card to hand, and then using it to dump off King Sarcophagus is strong. Breaking a board, you summon it. If you have another copy, your opponent outs it, you just summon it again, or you just search, and then your opponent just can't deal with it. They have to respect it, and they can't remove it from the board. So it's been great. 3 Droplet, obviously very standard right now for this format. Probably the best card for board breaking currently out, honestly. I love it. It's been absolutely insane, and I wouldn't take it out or change it for anything. Card's just absolutely nuts. 2 Book of Moon. So actually, this Book of Moon was enemy controller for a while. I was testing it. I did not like it, only because of the fact that with enemy controller, you have to commit to a play. And the problem with committing to a play is that it was only good when you're summoning Fenrir, searching Fenrir, and then trying to steal your opponent's monster. And if they didn't respond to it, then obviously you're like, oh, okay, well, they removed their monster, or they, chain their IP or something. Then you're able to just resummon your other Fenrir that you searched. That was fine. But the problem otherwise is that you're having to commit to a play. Enemy controller forces you to have to tribute a monster. And then at that point, it's like, is the monster a dark? Is the monster a level 3? Is the monster a level 8? What are we doing with this monster? So that was the only problem that I had. In certain situations, obviously, you could steal like a Baron if you force the negate. You can steal certain monsters that do have value. But unfortunately, even with enemy controller, SP can dodge enemy controller as well. The good thing about Book of Moon is that, you're pretty much forcing your opponent to, interact. So like playing into a board, this forces an Omni. Playing into a board, if your opponent only has IP and something else, you're forcing the IP right then and there. So then, you're not having to lose an additional body. Even when you set up your board and you open this card, I mean, you're able to dodge effects playing in your first turn. If they have the imperm and they try to imperm your zombie vampire, you can book if you really need to resolve the effect and get resources. You can also save the book for your opponent's turn. If they try to droplet, if they try to imperm, you're able to pretty much avoid things like that, as well as also Griffin. If they imperm your Griffin, you just negate Book of Moon and resolve. So it's nice to have access to little resources like that. But this card was definitely it's just been good. I mean, it's Book of Moon and it's been kind of shining now, especially in 2023. Book of Moon's been putting in a lot of work. And then 2 talents. I'm usually not a fan of talents whatsoever, but I couldn't find an additional card that worked like talents that allowed me to get resources. Like if I could play Thrust because I had very good cards to search and set, I would 100% play it. But unfortunately, Talents does what we needed to do when we're on the play. So when we're setting up our board, if our opponent ashes our M SETI, we want to go for a draw 2 if we don't have the King Sarcophagus to try to see if we can draw into the King Sarcophagus. Same concept as if they ash our Water Enchantress, and you already have right, you can try to bait your opponent into ashing. So that way you can Talents look at their hand and then just free play. So there's a lot of situations where Talents just comes up going first, going second. It's great for board breaking. You're able to also draw, like there was one situation where I opened up 2. My opponent, I played into their IP Masquerena, and then I Talents, he hard negated with Baron, and then I just played another one. So yeah, it definitely was nice to have access to, this card. It's been very good, and I don't think there is a good replacement. I like Imperm, but unfortunately Imperm does what Droplet already does. I don't really need to interact with my opponent during their turn. And if my opponent plays Dweller, I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're playing past Dweller. I mean, I've gotten Silent Graved, and was able to break my opponent's board, not use my PK names, didn't even see Horus stuff, just seen adventure stuff. And then, the game kept going. Like it wasn't just a complete blowout. And I think that's important is that, you have the utility cards that are allowing you to be able to set up your board, break a board, but also be able to allow you to do more. And again, Imperm is nice, but unfortunately it turns off a card and that's it. Sometimes it can be low impact, but Talents just has multiple options. And I've been liking it as of lately. So like I said, 40 card main deck, very solid. I like this a lot. It's been very much performing for me. So I've been keeping it at that. We'll go ahead and get into the extra deck. We'll start off with the links. We've got ourselves one Cheer Beanie, best card in the extra deck, IP Masquerena, SP Little Knight. We've got Dark Charmer, Bardiche, and Underworld Goddess. So these are the links that we're playing. I wanted to keep Underworld Goddess in the extra deck to have it out to purely Noir, because this deck just pretty much doesn't really have that hard of a purely matchup. You start putting all your bodies on the board, Noir just can't do anything. And then once they see you've got enough monsters to go Underworld Goddess, that's when they'll try to respond. And if you put them under 5 material or at 5 material, you either Droplet, Talents, or Book, and that pretty much solves your problem. Yeah, they're going to use up the effect, but then you pretty much just OTK them that turn anyways. This deck just OTKs purely very, very easily, especially if they don't have any hand traps. If you Talents and you look at their hand and they don't have Nib or Droll or Ash or anything else, like you pretty much just win the game. So that's not a very threatening matchup, but yeah, so this is the link package that we do have. I don't think I'd change any of these. These are all very important because again, climbing sometimes with your Horus stuff, you do need to have access to Dark Charmer. Playing into a board, Dark Charmer is really good as well for SP Little Knight. IP Masquerena is obviously IP Masquerena. And Underworld Goddess, as I said, deals with the purely matchup. Then into the XYZs. We are only 2 level 3s we're playing as Breaksword. No Levier. Levier was underperforming very, very heavily. It just doesn't do enough. Levier is nice for being able to recycle resources and make an SP Little Knight, but unfortunately, that's all it does. It doesn't do anything else for us. So I decided to cut it. Those are our only 2 level 3s because Breaksword's absolutely nuts right now. Evil Storm Nightmare, obviously a great end board card. I don't like Time Thief Redoer, but an Evil Storm Nightmare is actually very good because Fenrir is a card right now. So being able to just book your opponent's Fenrir on summon means that you don't have to commit anything to it, and then it's not once per turn, so you're able to do it more than once. Raiders Knight and Ark Rebellion. So this is kind of the flex spot. Originally I had Unicorn and Access Code, but they weren't really coming up, and I've been using Raiders Knight and Ark Rebellion. They don't really come up. It's just like your deck already pretty much kills your opponent outside of just this kind of stuff. But I found that there were more situations where I would have wanted Raider Knight Ark Rebellion to be able to close out a game, because you pretty much just throw everything at your opponent. You burn all their resources. They don't have anything left. They have a board. One guy in attack mode, you pretty much win the game. So I definitely think that this was the better option over Unicorn and Access Code, because your deck already pretty much has the board breaking potential between Breaksword, SP Little Knight, Typhon, Bardiche. Like, you just don't need more like destruction utility. You want a way of being able to close out the game, and I feel like the Raiders Knight Ark Rebellion is much easier to get into than Access Code, because you're having to just use so many more bodies. So our level 8s, we're playing the number 90 and the zombie vampire. I still wouldn't play Hardbringer. Again, not a fan. This is much better, especially when you have like the perfect hand of like Water Enchantress, Mseti, and 2 level 3s. Like, you just make this and then you just play. So I think that's the better option, because it's great for your end board, and you don't have to go into zombie vampire. But I go into this all the time. Like, this card is just great. I mean, being able to use this to climb into Dark Charmer, Mseti comeback, Bardiche, like, you're just setting up your resources in your grave, and then the next turn, if you're stopping your opponent enough from being able to play the game, and then you just kill them next turn. There's no way they win. Typhon and Zeus. I mean, obviously, I put these on the same level because they're kind of like the I'm done with my turn. Let's play these cards. They're really great. Obviously, Zeus is Zeus. Typhon is Typhon. These cards have been overperforming. You're crazy if you can't play them. I understand, but you're crazy for not playing them. And I only say that in regards to the deck types. But anyways, yeah, these cards overperform. These cards are absolutely great. They do everything you want them to for being able to clear your opponent's board. Typhon overperforms because you're just able to break your opponent's board. They have one guy left. We'll make it an extra deck monster, leave it on the board, and then end of my combo. Okay, Typhon, return it. So it's been great. Like I said, definitely extra deck is amazing. I love every card in here. The only flex spot, as I said, is Raider Knight and Ark Rebellion. You can kind of do with that as you will. I don't go into them that often, but everything else I pretty much go into very, very often. And I mean, I wouldn't play Underworld Goddess, but I want to make sure that I had an easy, accessible way to deal with a Towers monster or Noir, and I felt like that was the best. So we'll go over my sideboard. I think my sideboard's very, very good as well for the meta. You can obviously make changes based on your locals and stuff like that, or whatever event you're going to based on performances. But 3 Druid Worm. I was doing DD Crow, but I found Druid Worm to just be better. We care more about the dark aspect. The body is really great too. It allows us to clear more, and not very many people are playing Branded Chimera anymore. So I guess like that's another reason why DD Crow is not as good as it was. But Druid Worm's great, obviously, for dealing for like the tier matchups, Unchained, any other dark deck, even like the Mirror and stuff like that, or even Horus decks like banishing their Mseti after they've pitched their entire hand is really nice. Droll and Logbird, obviously, as I said, it's a card that can definitely be flexed out. I do like it because it's another card that just stuns your opponent and stops them from being able to full combo. But there are other options, obviously, but I do think that Droll is still very, very good, especially against decks like Manadium. Purely, it's very good against. Tier, it's very good against as well, just because all the cards that they're playing as the hand, and you never want to really allow them to just play, because that's why the deck is so strong. 2 Dark Ruler. Wanted to have another option for siding out book and talents depending on the matchups. Like, this is very good against Sprite, any of the Sprite variants. It's very good against Manadium. It's very good against any board that pretty much tries to put up a bunch of negates. So I wanted to have this as an option because Book of Moon and talents aren't really great into decks like that. So I feel like Dark Ruler is just much better. So 2 Dark Ruler, and again, the number is there to facilitate sides. So I make sure that the amount of numbers that I'm playing for a lot of the cards in my side deck, they do go, they correspond with the non-engine cards in my deck to allow me to be able to side out properly. 1 call by, as I said, I don't like playing it in the main because you never know if you're going to be going first or second. It's not that great going second, in my opinion. It's only good against a couple of decks going second, but I think that it's a necessary card to have for when you're going first. You want to have that protection of being able to stop Droll, Ash, stuff like that, since we're not really playing hand traps. 3 evenly matched, very insane right now, this format. I think this card is probably one of the most mandatory cards to play. Every deck is affected by it, even Unchained. I mean, you can say you can set up a board that plays around it, but being able to one card out half your resources and force you to only have the second half of your resources to be able to play is great. And then, of course, it's insane against like Rescue Ace. I know they have ways of being able to play around it, but that's the whole purpose of being able to play other cards. You know, you kind of force the negates or the omnis and then you go for the evenly. But yeah, I think this is great. This card's absolutely nuts. 2 Cosmic and 1 Harpies. So we wanted to make sure that we did have outs to Floodgates. Anti-spell can be a little annoying. We are able to ideally play around it because we do have access to, you know, Break Sword and stuff to pop and whatnot. But yeah, I think Cosmic Cyclone is just nice to be able to have just in case you do get floodgated in some awkward way. You know, there's a lot of floodgates in this game, so you never know what your opponent's going to pull out. And then Harpy's Feather Duster is great just because of the fact that it's really good against Rescue Ace. It does what it needs to, and being able to, you know, clear the set 4. But yeah, this is the sideboard. I think this sideboard is actually very clean. There's nothing that I'm honestly missing in my opinion, or nothing that I've been like, oh, you know, I wish I had this. So again, the only thing I can say is Droll is a very good flex card. Yeah, Phantasma could go into the sideboard if you are playing hand traps. I think that's good. I mean, if you're not playing the board breakers like I am, you can always do Phantasma over this, just because it gives you the option of being able to just draw cards, draw into hand traps, and then be able to you know, slow your opponent down. But I also think it's good because it gives you kind of like an omni. You know, like you have the ability to stop cards at target, so it kind of gives you that free negate. But yeah, that was it for the sideboard. So that's it for this main, extra, and sideboard. I hope you guys enjoy the deck profile. You know, like I said, I've been having a blast playing this deck. It's been absolutely fun. I'm back at locals regularly playing this. And like I said, I have not dropped a single match. The deck is very, very strong. I know the Horus cards are new, so they are a little harder for people to play around, but the engine's very great. It facilitates Phantom Knights very, very well, especially if you're using your resources properly. But yeah, let me go ahead and give you guys a couple of test hands so I can show you guys pretty much how I'm playing the deck, and then we can, you guys can, you know, jump in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into the combo portion here. We'll go ahead and showcase for you guys what we do with the deck, some couple of hands to show and test. You know, again, it's always different based on how your opponent interacts with you. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. 3, 4, 5. And very solid. So we go ahead and special. We'll go ahead and search. I mean, obviously, we're going to ignore just the idea of like Droll and Ash and stuff. But if we were going to do Droll or anything, or we were afraid of Droll, we would just do Mseti first, pitching Water Enchantress. Because if they Ash that, they know they have to deal with the right package anyways. So yeah, we have that. We got that out the deck. So we're going to go ahead and actually do Mseti. We don't mind if we draw a card of the engine if need be. We're getting ahead of myself. So King Sarcophagus. You notice we don't have a single Phantom Knight name. They could change after our draw, but we are still able to play even without seeing a Phantom Knight name. So Triggerback's not a big deal. We'll do Water Enchantress. We'll go ahead and grab our right. We'll go ahead and activate right. Getting our token. Field placement's not too important at the moment, but you know, we'll stay conscious of that in the event that we obviously have to be. We'll go ahead and search for a monster. So we'll get our Griffin set up here already. And even with this kind of board, like even the idea of having these options, discard summon, we'll summon this here. So even like having the option of being able to like end on something like this with Book, Droplet, a negate, and Fenrir isn't even the worst. I mean, we can honestly, we can even do Photon Lord if we wanted to, but again, we have so many options, and it's really nice to be able to have these different utility that we do have here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to send right here, and then we're actually gonna keep the book. I think the book is probably the more interactable one than Droplet, just because we ideally probably don't want to send. I mean, book usually kind of can stop in certain situations our opponent's entire ability to play. So we'll do these two. We'll overlay these two for Vampire. And like I said, if worst case, if you didn't want to go on the chance of this, you could always literally just have kept the Droplet, summon Mseti and Happy, and then literally just make number 90. And you end on a monster effect negate, an Omni, Fenrir, and the next turn it's like you have all your dudes come back. All right. So this is in our hand. We'll do 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and I mean it's what happens. I mean, we've got our four dumps. So we'll go ahead and see what we're gonna bring back here. We'll go ahead and actually just grab the torn scale. And then we'll go ahead and link these two off for Cherubini, or I'm sorry, for Dark Charmer. And then we'll go ahead and bring back Imseti and make Bardiche. And that's, I mean, that's literally just how simple it is. I mean, we technically don't even need Cherubini because we have all of our engine anyways. But we just go ahead and set this up. So that's going to end up being set as well. And then we can go ahead and send him Cloak. Then we can go ahead and use Cloak to get out Silent Boots. Trigger Torn Scale. And if you really wanted IP over Fenrir, obviously you could in a situation like this, but or you wanted IP and Evil Swarm, then you could, but I mean I don't think there's any reason to. And then we'll go ahead and bring these two back as level 4s. And like I said, you have the option of either going into IP Masquerena or you have the option of going into Evil Swarm Nightmare. But yeah, so you do have the option. I mean, I usually like going into IP Masquerena just because SP Little Knight's pretty insane. And then of course you have like the free body. So like you have the wings to summon and to pop. And then you can just use it for SP Knight. But yeah, that's pretty much the idea. Very solid end board. Very strong. Very hard to deal with, obviously. And like I said, even at a point, if your opponent decided to Ash the Horus or the Imseti, then you still had adventure stuff that you could lead off with. All right, so that was the first one. We'll do one more. See how we open up the second time. But definitely options. And as you can see, Vampire Lord or Vampire, Zombie Vampire, whatever his name is, sometimes he gets us there. I mean, sometimes being able to mill, like you end up getting a decent amount of cards. So it's very nice to have that option of being able to mill. I think we shuffled it up enough. Cut. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I mean, these hands are just, insane. Like I said, just Fenrir effect. Get Fenrir. We'll actually use the sarcophagus, just not yet. We want to get these cards out of the deck so that we're not having to draw them. Because as you can see, we drew the Draco back last time. Goes. We have these. So we can go ahead and we'll just do it now. I don't want to summon. So the only issue with like a situation like this is that if we go for the normal summon now, then we can't use 2 level 8s to make vampire because we won't have enough room. So I think it's always just best to just kind of do the Imseti here. The only reason why we're doing it is to thin in for the draw. Also, Imseti is going to be in the graveyard anyways. We're going to want him in the graveyard anyways, so there's no reason to not do it. We're going to have to dump him anyways. Dump him off of King's Sarcophagus regardless. But I'd much rather have the draw, because if we can draw into something like Book of Moon, or even just another name, it just makes this a whole lot easier. But that's actually perfect. So we activate effect. Get Rodrigo back, search for a monster. Makes this a whole lot easier. Get Wandering Griffin Rider, summon, send, effect, attach. Then we can go ahead and normal summon these two. Go into Cherubini effect. We'll go ahead and send Cloak. We'll go ahead and activate, bring back Imseti. These two for Bardiche effect. We'll send Torn. And we'll put the Fog Blade. So again, another issue with this is that your board gets very full. So as you can see, we do have access to our 2 names because we can send 2 this turn. So the idea behind this is that if our opponent does hit us with something and we negate, then we're able to just put Photon Lord on the board. So let's say, for example, our opponent hits us with something. We'll say okay. Then we'll go ahead and we'll do Water Enchantress to add right. Before we do any of our Phantom Knight stuff, we'll dump both of these for the other two names. We'll bring them back. And then we can get ourselves another negate. So we'll put these two here for number 90. And then we'll go ahead and do our Phantom Knight stuff. We'll get our cloak. Cloak will grab boots. We'll trigger Torn. Special. Overlay these two. Well, actually, we could. Yeah, we'll do that. That's fine. I'd much rather have the two interruptions. So we make Break Sword. And then you can either do IP Masquerena, which is what I like to do, and then banish boots for another Break Sword or Fogblade. Or if you really wanted to play it safe, you can get wings to have that direct pop, because that way you can just like use wings whenever you need to protect something, and then bring back the Break Sword. And but yeah, I mean, pretty solid. I mean, double Fogblade, monster effect negate, IP, and again, that's even with using your Griffin during your turn to negate something. So, yeah, I mean, deck's really great, and I mean, even playing into a board, like you just have all this utility of Adventure, Fenrir. Playing in a board is even easier with stuff like this because you just go Fenrir. That threatens just everything your opponent decides to answer you with the rest of the turn. I mean, they ash your Water Enchantress, they ash your Imseti, you get to respond with Fenrir, which, you know, starts dealing with their board. So, but yeah, hope you guys enjoy this profile, this discussion, this combo video. As always, jump in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. As I said, I think this is the best and most consistent way of being able to play the deck. I really do enjoy it. Again, setting up a board, breaking a board is absolutely nuts. You know, your utility is great. I have no issues with any of the cards in this deck at the moment. But if you guys have any other logic, any other ideologies, or any other formulas, or you know, anything you'd like to do in terms of transforming your deck, definitely again jump in the comment section. We'll discuss it. But hope you guys enjoy, and like, subscribe as always.